Welcome to the 133rd episode of the Flipped Learning Remix podcast, where cutting edge technology meets learning. I'm your host, Troy Cockrum, with my co-host, Joan Brown. Hello, Joan.
How are you doing, Troy?
I'm doing good. I know with the holidays, the Thanksgiving and now the winter holidays coming up, that we've both been pretty busy, and that's kind of why we haven't done an episode in a little bit.
We're back, though, and we're ready to do a great one.
And I was in California with NASA for a week, so that took me out of part of November. So that's, we've been very busy with things, but now we're back, like you said, and we wanted to do, with the end of the year quickly approaching, we wanted to do what are some of the hottest technology tools or sites or options that we've seen really pick up in 2015, or maybe also ones that we think are going to be good in 2016.
Right, the ones that we've seen teachers using too that have made an impact on their teaching style, or perhaps they're just now starting to look at and are enthusiastic about. Those are the kind that we like.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first one that I really like. I think it has some promise in it. Kind of made a splash in June. And that's Tickle, or Tickle App. Mm-hmm. And we actually talked about it on one of our shows when we talked about robotics and coding and things like that. But Tickle, this week I've been doing the hour of code with a lot of my students. And the code.org is a great website to introduce coding. But now I have a lot of kids asking, what's next? Right? I've done these modules or these activities. Now what do I do? And Tickle still uses that Blockly sort of programming, but allows you to program actual devices like Sphero and the Parrot drone and things like that. So I think it's a really promising app because it allows you to do actual programming of devices all in one interface. You don't have to go to different apps or different tools to do the programming. So I really like that Tickle app.
Right, and we're going to be using that for our hour of code. I'm in a middle school, and we have the Sphero, and we've put together quite a extensive maze, I guess, and it'll be something that we just allow kids to rotate through and see if they can solve the maze by coding the Sphero to get through it. So it's something that they can pick up right away, and it does challenge their brain still because it's got a whole lot of the angles in it. It isn't anything beyond, though, the device itself, and that's the part that's hard. It does have its own little interface for a game that you can create with a whale, or are there any other characters in there? Can't recall.
I can't recall.
But just to clarify too, it's an iOS app, right? And you can't really put it on an Android or even a computer. Okay. But yeah, we like it. We do like it. I think for upper elementary and early middle school, it's excellent. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about some of the upgrades that happened in Classroom this year. And there are a few of them that really made a difference in my life. First of all, the integration of Google Forms. Well, we love forms. We've been using them forever. We've been grading them with Flubaroo. We've been doing all kinds of great things with them. But when we got Classroom, it was that extra step to have kids remember to go back after they'd completed a form and mark it as done, so you knew which kids had actually filled in the form. And you never knew that unless you counted in your spreadsheet how many people had answered or whatever, and you still were trying to figure out, well, which one didn't. So when they integrated that and it really was cool because now you can see who's done and you can get directly to their answers from Google Classroom. Made a world of difference, and starting to get that formative assessment piece, just ramp it up that much more. The other one that I've seen used brilliantly is the Q&A feature. And teachers can do that formative on the fly with Q&A because you can type in a question right before class starts. You can type in a question right in the middle of class. I like the fact that you can add pictures in there. So they can, have 2 pictures and say, which one of these is correct, or you choose one to write your answer about. It really is just an extra level there that helps. But the teacher gets to see all those answers immediately as they're submitted and know, hey, they're either getting this concept or no, they are not, and I need to reteach. So those 2 features are terrific.
Yeah, I think Classroom is really coming along well. And yeah, a student told me the other day, he said, I think there's been an update to Classroom. I said, why? He said, well, it looks different. And I'm like, well, it's entirely possible because Google's constantly updating that kind of stuff. And I said, so, yeah, I mean, they could have made an update. And he was trying to point out what looked different, but I didn't quite understand what he was trying to tell me. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, in Classroom, last year when it came out, last school year, there were still people a little bit apprehensive because it was limited, but over the summer and then throughout the course of this first part of this school year, it's really come along so that it's been very helpful for quite a bit of teachers.
Have you tried Share to Classroom, the Chrome extension?
I don't. I mean, I have downloaded the extension, but I don't directly use Classroom because I don't have my own class.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like it as a feature if I had my own classroom, but I don't have to update a classroom page. So I show it to my teachers when I introduce them to Classroom and see them start using it. I show it to them. Do you use it?
Well, I observed a teacher today, and I should give him total credit. He was using it today brilliantly. Math teachers, take note of this. So if you don't understand how Share to Classroom works, basically it's a Chrome extension that allows you to push out a page, a web page to all of your students, or it could be a Google Doc or slide or whatever to all of your students at once. It just pops up on their screen. And that's an amazing feature right there. But it's a two-way street because students can share something with you. And this math teacher did an inquiry lesson on simple interest, and he had the kids do research, and he asked them to push the pages to him so that he could monitor and see what they were finding. And when they found good ones, he would push them back to the whole class. He'd say, hey, take a look at what Susie just found. Push. And I thought it was the most amazing lesson because it was a great use of that technology where it's so much faster to share it that way and they see it and it's in the moment. So if you have not tried Share, put that one on there if you have Classroom and see what you think. I've also seen quite a few of the resources out there. Let me think of a good one. The Culture Institute, for example, has the Share to Classroom button, so that if you're in there, or Quizlet does as well. Let's say you've made your card stack and you just want to assign that right now. You have a button in your account that just says Share to Classroom, and that instantly makes it an assignment. You just get to choose which class and go. So stuff like that has made Classroom so much more convenient and faster for teachers.
I should stick that extension on our Chromebooks. And let the students see it, and they'll start sharing stuff to Classroom, and the teacher will realize realize it's there.
The question is, can you turn it off? I haven't figured that one out yet. You should be able to, as a teacher, block it for a certain period of time. But those are all features that are coming, right?
Yeah.
Must be. So what else you got, Troy?
Well, we've done a show on this. because I was trying to think of some devices that will be, there's lots of new devices all the time, but what are good classroom devices? And we've done a show on Google Cardboard, and now with the introduction of Expeditions, it's really amped up.
We got them coming. I am so excited, Troy. We've got Google coming the first week of January for our school to show off, to be our Expedition Pioneer program is coming. And I think the students are going to be blown away, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that I've seen use it, even just regular cardboard without the Expedition layer on top of it, they're blown away. So you're lucky. I don't think we're going to get it at our school, but yeah, just the options available now with Expeditions. They haven't announced the price, and it comes down to the device, how the device is going to work. Are they going to come without devices and you'll have to provide your own devices, which from my understanding from Expeditions, that won't happen. They'll all have to have a standard device to make sure it works.
Right.
Then how much is the device going to cost? And that, so those, excuse me, those are a lot of interesting dilemmas to think about or questions to ask. But I mean, they're doing some cool stuff with that Expeditions and cardboard, and I think we're going to see a big leap here once Expeditions becomes available. Not just the Pioneer program, but once they start getting it in more classrooms and people start seeing it, and teachers start developing their own materials for it. I can't wait to see, where that's going to go.
And by the way, just so folks know, they have developed the curriculum for, I can't even remember how many I counted. It's over 20, it's way over 20 expeditions that we as the Pioneer School have to choose from for our students. So the curriculum is out there. They're really pushing this. This is going to be a package deal that you're probably going to be able to choose a lot for your school. Because if someone's going to invest in one of those kits, they're going to want to get a lot for their money. And I think Google's working very hard to make sure they do.
And I guess just a quick overview of what Expeditions is, if listeners don't know.
We failed to say it, didn't we?
Because cardboard is virtual reality, virtual reality. And Expeditions allows the teacher to use a tablet and control the interface of what all the students see, and can see what they're looking at. Because the one thing that surprised me, and I still haven't figured this out, when we saw it at ISTE in June, is that you and I could be looking at the same thing but turned opposite directions.
Yes, I know.
Based on your starting point. And I could, when we were all looking at the same items, and then I took off the headset and we were looking in different directions, I'm like, how are we looking at the same item if we were looking in different directions? So the teacher can't physically tell what you're looking at, but on the device, on her screen or his screen, it shows what each headset is looking at. So they can say, Johnny, you're looking at the wrong thing. Turn more to the left, or and they can actually put arrows on the screen and do different, they can do pop-up windows that explain things. And so there's a lot of options, educational options in Expeditions that aren't there with just standard cardboard.
Right now, it looks like the majority of Expeditions are either science or maybe world history related or world cultures related, but the types that I'm seeing are things like biomes or Antarctica or underwater, like we view the coral reef. Those are the types of expeditions, and they're going to last 20 minutes or so, the full tour. But then you can, of course, incorporate all kinds of other lessons with it. And I think once kids do that once, they're going to want to do it again. because you may want to do the same expedition more than once because you're going to get to a different level every time.
Well, and it'd be interesting too if you want kids to take notes or something like that, or you know, to do some inquiry with the.
Right.
You don't want them to be able to look at it for a little bit, take it off, write down something, or do an activity and then put it back on. So,
Right.
Yeah, so it'll change a lot of classrooms.
I agree. Well, we'll just watch that one in 2016. We want to see where it goes. The map for where they're doing expeditions is on the website. If you just look for Google Expeditions, they do have a map for where they're putting together the Pioneer program, but it's not a clickable map to tell you when they're showing up. They have little flags all over the United States. So I do see that it's going to start moving more inland, and other places will have it very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, they told us it's coming to Indiana in early January. I forget the dates, but they've said when it's coming, and I'm sure there's other areas nearby that are getting it around the same time. So.
All right. So that one's pretty big razzmatazz. I don't want to try to compete with that with my next one, but I really have enjoyed Flippity, and I was searching desperately for a way to gamify Google Apps for Education, and that was without having anything more than just Google Apps and Classroom. And what Flippity is a free service that provides some functionality to spreadsheets. And the first functionality that they came out with quite a while ago were flashcards, so that you could build flashcards straight from a Google spreadsheet. And it makes a very nice, pretty online flashcard deck. But now they've added 3 new features. And the one that's probably the coolest are the badges. And basically, you can determine what you want your students to get badges for, and it will show up on the screen how many badges they earn for whatever the category is. Maybe it's turning homework in on time. Well, you can, give your children their, let's see, this is a demo I'm looking at. Dennis has earned 4 badges, and one of them is probably going to be, let's see, I'll show you the ones they have on their demo. They've got online safety badge. They had computer basics badge. They had a programming badge, good going for them, and online search badge. I went in and I decided, well, I like the ones that they have on their template, but what if I wanted a badge that looked totally different? So I went in and made my own badges on Credly, and I just used the URL for that badge, and I added it to the spreadsheet, and lo and behold, I could change up the badges to anything I wanted, and it resized them perfectly, and it displays on a web page real nicely with all the kids' names, so they can click on who they are and look at their badges they've earned. There's also a progress indicator, which I would almost look at as a leaderboard, but on their demo, they're showing it as a way that kids can probably show how many pages they've read if they were doing some sort of a reading rally, or how many books they've read, or maybe how many questions they've answered. Maybe in gym class, how many miles they've run. But it's really nice, colorful leaderboard that would change dynamically with the spreadsheet. And then finally, they have a random name picker, which there are a lot of those out there, I know. But normally, all of us that are in Google Apps are going to have our roster in Google Apps, so that makes it simple to quickly create this name picker. I've done the quiz show too. It's a Jeopardy quiz show. If anyone wants a Jeopardy template, the one at Flippity is easy to use. So they've done a lot. They've added a lot to make Google Apps functional.
I'll push one similar to that, not as gamified, but one that I like is called Fresh Grade, and still not a lot of people know about it. and I'm surprised because I really like what it is. It's a portfolio tool for those classrooms, especially elementary, that wants to create a portfolio for their students. Fresh Grade is free for teachers. Now they charge a district if you want it district wide, but for an individual teacher, it's free. And it's very attractive interface, but you can upload pictures, you can take photo. I mean, you can take a photo there. You can upload video, audio, and it's all inside the student's account or the student's portfolio, and the parents then have access to that to see the student's work and the grades. You can see throughout the course of a year. I can really see art teachers loving something like this because they could show students throughout the course of the year what they've improved on and things like that. One other use I thought for it was, when I taught middle school, we would always give speeches or presentations. I would grade the speeches or the presentations, but I was the only one. First of all, I was the only one that saw them, the only parent or the only teacher that saw them. And then when I'm grading, I'm going back on my memory. And so Fresh Grade allows you to put video in, and you could video record your students' speeches and put it in their portfolio and then attach a rubric to it and grade it. Then the parents can actually see the student presenting as opposed to them just having to take your word for it, in essence, of what the presentation looked like. And then for you as the teacher, if you don't remember it very well, if you had to watch 30, 40 presentations or however many you watched, and then you think back to the kid that you saw 3 days ago, and you can't remember certain parts and your notes don't make sense or for whatever reason, you can just watch the presentation again and grade it.
Is there a way to give feedback within Fresh Grade?
Yes. It has, I don't know how you'd explain it. Just the interface allows you to add comments and things like that. So you can, yes, you can give feedback as part of the assessment piece in Fresh Grade. So,
and I'm looking, it has an app too, which looks nice and slick to make this easy to access.
Yeah, so I think it's particularly since it's free. I mean, I wish it was tied into Google Apps a little bit easier, because a lot of Google App schools are putting a lot of digital material in students' Drive, but especially for elementary teachers whose students don't have Drive or don't know how to use them, and you want to keep a portfolio for them. I think it's a great tool.
Hey, and I'm going to do this as an aside. I see down on the page for this app and tool that they have signed the Student Privacy Pledge. And if you're a teacher and you're unaware of this and you're making decisions about which tools to use in your classroom, many companies, in fact, over 200 now, are signing voluntarily a pledge to ensure that student data is kept private. Google is one of them that has signed it, but also I've got all 209 right here in front of me. And some of the most famous ones like Brain Pop and let's see, Canvas. And, it's important that if you're the one who's making that decision to make an account on something, and we kind of talked about this before the show, not everything out there is built for education. But if you see that Student Privacy Pledge on the site, you can almost be guaranteed that that was built for education, and that's going to be a safe account for your kids. And that was kind of my segue for you, Troy, for another tool that came out.
Yeah, so we were talking off air, and wanted to bring it up as a hot tool that we've seen a lot of teachers using is Periscope. And if you aren't familiar with Periscope, it's a live video app. You can record video. You can broadcast video live from your phone to your followers, but then it tweets it out so people who aren't your followers can also see it, because Periscope is owned by Twitter, and people can watch it live, or if you turn on the replay feature, people can watch the replay for, I want to say 24 hours. I'm not 100% positive on that, but I think the video stays up for 24 hours. And so, Joan, we were talking about, there's a lot of good uses for it. So let's start with the good uses first.
Well, I can imagine a teacher that goes on a trip somewhere. Maybe they're going hiking in the Grand Canyon, and they would like to be able to feed that back to a classroom somewhere. I mean, those are amazing uses, because the kids would be able to be live and asynchronous conversations, and you know, have that true experience of it happening at the time.
Because I did Periscope during my week at NASA. I mean, I did Google Hangout with a couple of classes, but I also did a Periscope, just sort of impromptu, and said, here's the airplane that I'm on, take a look, kind of a thing. And like you said, it was a chance for them to see immediately what I was doing and give them that video feedback or video experience.
There's something so authentic about being there live, and I know I enjoy it when I'm in the moment and seeing it, but other people can join when you're doing a live Periscope.
Yeah. Let's continue to talk about the good uses.
All right.
I'll get to the bad, I'm sure.
All right.
But I can also see, if you're studying a particular country, say you're studying Italy. I know our second graders, I was just talking to a second grade teacher, they're studying Italy. You can go on Periscope and find somebody in Italy to talk to you right then. You might want to vet that person before you actually talk to them, just to make sure that there's somebody that would be appropriate to talk to. But you can, I know, like I was telling you, when I traveled this summer, before I would go to someplace, to a foreign country, I would check out people's Periscopes in that country or in the city I was going to, and then watch them and ask them questions to help me plan my trip. And so I can see students using it for the research potential there.
I mean, I can imagine pen pals being, incredibly much more dynamic in this regard, because you're always trying to get kids to describe what it is like in their school, and then they could be just showing what it's like. Granted, there are a million uses. When you can reach out of your four walls of the classroom and go someplace else, that becomes the best experience ever. I mean, just like expeditions, it's something that is way beyond what you could normally have in the classroom.
And I liked what you were telling me off air about the experience with the Paris events, because just being able to pull different perspective of current events in.
I mean, we have a political race that is quite fascinating, and if you had an upper level high school that was studying civics, it wouldn't be uncommon to say, hey, let's go find a Periscope of someone who is at this speech right now and watching it, and see what people are saying. That could happen.
Yeah.
I could see a teacher doing that.
So the bad, I guess we should take it, and my apprehension with Periscope, and I think some teachers are being irresponsible promoting it without telling you that there is a downside to it, and I have trouble showing it to students and promoting it as a good tool, knowing that they can so easily get themselves into some bad situations with it. And I've went into, like, you can pull up a map in Periscope of the world and just randomly pick people's Periscopes to join. And you don't have to know the person. They don't have to know you. Now, they can block you if you do something that they don't like. They can block you, and then it kicks you out of the Periscope. But I've seen some where people are not nice. not they ask the person in the video inappropriate questions.
Right.
And I can see a younger student being overwhelmed by it, or being afraid of it. You know, I mean, just, and so.
Right, straightforward, as you were saying. I when the Paris shootings were happening, I picked it up and I joined one in Paris, and it was live, the events happening. So when you say it could be scary, I mean, for me, that was scary to see that happening live, and I wouldn't recommend kids being able to view that, you know.
Yeah, so, you know, I would say if you use it as a tool in the classroom, explain it very in detail to the students, and probably even send an email home to parents and say, this can be an awesome tool, but this can also be a very awful tool. And so my preference is, if there's that huge of a downside that I can't control, I don't introduce it to the students.
It'd be nice to be able to have a private Periscope. Is that an option?
Not that I've seen.
Right. Okay.
I haven't used it a whole lot since the summer, when it really was, when I really saw it getting popular. And I still see teachers tweeting out their Periscopes and things like that. So I know it's still being used, but I haven't used it as much to know if there's been any updates. When I first started using it, there wasn't private ones that I could see. So and it's the other part is it's video one side, and then the other side is text. So the people viewing send you messages, so you have to sit there and read the messages. And
yes, the screen can get full quickly.
Yeah, so it's a tool to check out. It's, you know, maybe you can vet some current events, because that's one thing, you know, I know Jim Sill always says it. YouTube is amazing because you can get so many different perspectives on one event or one topic or one idea. And it's the same with Periscope. If something big, newsworthy happens at night, and the video is still safe for 24 hours, you could find a good video and then show it to your students the next day and say, this somebody recording this as it happened or right after it happened, and this is a perspective of somebody who was there. And that can be pretty powerful. But those same things could probably be found on YouTube as well.
Oh, sure. So I mean, you could go all day talking about it, but in general, it's not all that much different than a Google Hangout. It's not all that much different than a Skype if you're able to do that with an individual. So maybe those are the better options, maybe.
Yeah.
It's just not as cool because it's not as new. I am going to throw one in from a previous show, and I don't think it's had a lot of traction. I'm not sure why. I really like the interface, Docent EDU. And Docent EDU is I account that you'd make as a teacher. It is free. And you are able to add content to web pages, Google Docs, YouTube, and what have you. And the content you can add, you can add questions, you can add space for open-ended responses, and you can add video, or you can add images. The amazing thing is, the first part of this is, of course, in a Google Doc, you can't put a video, but with Docent EDU, you can. And then, of course, you can create your own type of worksheets and all based on web pages. So if I'm adding questions or open-ended responses based on a web page, you can get some good research and guided research for the students. Have them follow through with reading everything on the page. And I like it because I can see the kids' responses, and I can give them feedback on that through Docent. I'd like to see if that one is going to be around in 2016. I know there's a lot of these startup companies, and they start with a bang and then suddenly fizzle out because there's so many different tools competing for that same formative assessment area. And they all have a little bit different style. So I mentioned another one off air too called Formative. Very similar concept where you can build questions, open-ended response, even whiteboards in there with students and watch them progress in real time, asynchronous. And you know, it's very similar to a Google Doc, only it's just a little slicker look to it, and it has a few bells and whistles that you don't see. But for some reason, Formative has received an awful lot of press lately, and I'm curious if it's going to take off a lot more than Docent EDU. I see those as similar in their style. Okay.
We've done shows on this actually probably 2 years ago even. Augmented reality is not new for 2015. My biggest problem with augmented reality has always been it's so difficult for a student to create something that's has augmented reality. You can get these cool tools that are consumers. You can hold them up and see things, but it's really hard for students to create. Now they can create, like Crayola now has coloring books that are enhanced with augmented reality, so students can create on that side of it, but they can't create their own auras very easily. I've been able to do it in Erasma,
Right.
but it wasn't easy. And it chases a lot of people away. And of course, you know, here we always really promote student-centered projects and things like that. And the students not being able to create makes it not student-centered. But it is getting easier from the trigger side of it, or from the what DAQRI has really come along, DAQRI, with some tools that are really becoming much easier to use on the consumption side. And one that they have is Elements 4D, and they have Universe 4D, and a couple others. And Elements 4D has been around for a while, but the blocks that you had to print the blocks, but I don't know when they're going to come out for sale, but I've seen the actual blocks. I've held the blocks in my hands that they have, that they're going to start selling, and they're kind of a spongy, almost like a stress ball. You know, I expected them to be cardboard or something, but they're like a stress ball. They're that kind of spongy material. So when those come out, those will be neat. But you can always print the blocks too. But
it says right on the DAQRI website, notify me when they come out. So
yeah. So I think that's come a long way in 2015, augmented reality. I think it's going to come a long way in 2016. I've been hearing some things that are in the pipeline. You know, it's not there yet. Most teachers haven't even heard of it. Most teachers don't have enough patience or time to figure it out.
Yeah.
I would say, but
Right.
it's come a long way. It's got some really cool things, and once it just gets to be a little bit easier, I think it's really going to hit that tipping point, and that could be. I'm not ready to make the stamp of approval for 2016, but it could be in 2016.
Sure. Okay, Troy. I was a keyboarding teacher for years, and the kids would say every year, they would say, I don't need to learn to keyboard because the computer's going to be able to type my text from my speech. And I would say over and over again, nope, not going to happen. The technology is terrible. And believe me, I used Dragon Dictation for years way back, and I would sit there for hours trying to get it to recognize my voice and understand my words, and I'd be frustrated and all that. Well, this year, Google put speech to text directly in a Google Doc. I mean, it's in the menu now. And what is scary is it's very, very good.
It is. It is good.
I cannot believe how well it recognizes voices. And I actually have to give a success story because we have special ed kids that have, very, very difficult time with typing. And some of these kids, even their speech isn't all that clear, but they're using the speech to text tool in Google, and they're getting a huge accuracy rate so that they have little editing left to do. And that to me is a game changer for a lot of these kids, that they're getting an amount of text on they're actually creating where they've never had that opportunity before because of so many limitations. So if you are a special ed teacher and you have not tried this, please give it a whirl. We've even been able to do it with multiple kids in the class, even without headsets. It picks up very nicely directionally if you're talking directly at the microphone, and it's not picking up a whole lot of the noise around. I don't know how they do that. Google's just getting really good. And then my other favorite, when you want to go the other direction, is a Chrome extension called SpeakIt. And here's a couple of, well, I should go back to the other one first. The speech to text, that one is brilliant for the writing process, but to finish off the writing process, having it read back to them really does create the final editing, because they get to hear what they've said and know whether or not it makes sense. So by adding this Chrome extension, SpeakIt, you can hear your text read to you aloud. And I even have introduced this to my world languages teachers because it can read in just about every foreign language there is.
Interesting.
So if a student needs to hear pronunciation, it's beautiful. It has the correct accent and everything. And so take a look for iSpeech for that one. A lot of uses.
That, I've noticed with the speech to text, I have to talk tiny bit slower to make sure it catches everything. And it took some practice to have to say period, question mark, new paragraph. That kind of stuff took a little getting used to, but yeah, it is scarily accurate.
It is. I am actually pretty good. I like the idea. You do have to pause when you say, you can't just say, and that is the last thing I say, period. You have to say, and that is the last thing I say, period. And then you have to, you have to give it a pause because it'll write out the word if you don't. And saying new paragraph, it has to be sort of separated out from everything else you're saying. But if you get used to doing that, it's not difficult at all.
And that's it's in the tools, right?
Right. It's just if you're in a Google Doc and you click on tools, it's right in there.
Yeah. So because they have, I mean, if you have an Android phone, you know that their speech, well, and you use your Android phone a lot for the speech part. You can do Google searches with speech, and
Okay,
you
Google.
know,
Hmm.
right? Yeah. So you knew they had the technology. It was just a matter of sticking it inside Google Docs where it was easy to access, and now it's there. So
That is just too amazing. Yep. Is there anything else we want to highlight
one
for?
thing that it's pretty new, and I can't figure out. It's YouTube Red. I'm really intrigued by it, and because I'm a big YouTube user as far as with students, and actually I read some research the other day that said I think it was 4.2%, if I remember correctly, or 4.5% of students say they do not use YouTube. So, and you probably, if you do another study, it says 4.5% of students lie. You know what I mean? But I haven't met a kid who doesn't know how to use YouTube.
Mhm.
And so I always try to promote it as, if you know how to create playlists, if you know how to do the edit features and things like that, you can really get a lot of mileage out of YouTube with students. But this YouTube Red came out maybe a month ago now, um, and it is ad-free YouTube. Now, the pre-roll, it does, if somebody puts an ad inside of their YouTube video, you can't remove that. But the pre-roll ads, if you pay $10 a month, you get YouTube without the pre-roll ads. And you also get, and I'm not sure why they don't really advertise this more, you also get Google Play Music. So, and Google Play Music was $10 a month before. So if you had Google Play Music and were already paying the $10 a month, now you have YouTube Red. So you get a lot with that. Um, and I think it's got a lot of potential. I kind of wonder, as a content producer, now I don't make a lot of money. I don't make any money off of YouTube, but as a content producer, is my content now less valuable because they've eliminated ads? I don't know. That's still up in the air how they're going to compensate content producers. And I'm not one that produces enough content to really make money, but there are people who do.
Right.
Um,
Oh yes, there's some very famous YouTubers making great deals of money.
yeah. So, but it's interesting. I've heard, I heard a mother who has a 5-year-old, and she said, it's great for me because now I can let my 5-year-old just sit and watch YouTube videos, and I don't have to worry about ads popping up that she can't get out of, or that she's watching these ads and things like that. So, something to look into.
Would you think a $10 a month is worth it for a classroom teacher, just so they can show videos?
I think, if I always, I mean, the students expect so every time I pull up a video to show students, almost always there's a video. So we play the first 3 or 4 seconds or whatever, and then hit skip ad. And then, so that's not a huge issue. The students know it's coming. It's, you can skip it so quickly within, I think it's 4 seconds. So I don't know if the $10 a month is worth it just if you're using it just in your classroom. But if you use Google Play Music a lot, and you watch a lot of YouTube videos for whatever reason, it could say, I mean, it would save me a great deal of time to not have to watch a lot of pre-roll ads, even though I'm only watching 4 or 5 seconds and then hit skip.
See, and does YouTube Red get rid of all the pop-up cards? What about the annotations? The subscribe?
It takes out the ones that are ads, like the annotations that are standard annotations.
Mm-hmm.
What it takes out is the monetized ads that Google puts in.
Right. Okay.
If the user puts anything in themselves, it stays in the ad. I
Okay.
mean, if the producer. Only the ads that Google has placed in the. So when you monetize your YouTube channel and you just choose to monetize a video, you have a couple of choices. You can have the pre-roll ad, and then you make more per view.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the bar ad at the bottom, the sort of the annotated
Mm-hmm.
ad that you make less. It's less intrusive, but you also make less per view. Or you can put no ads.
Mm-hmm.
I put no ads
Right.
because the amount of money to make is not worth it to me to bother my viewers with ads.
Mm-hmm.
But every time you click on a video and the pre-roll ad pops up, that person who uploaded that video has chosen to have that video pop up.
Sure.
So if you're getting mad at YouTube, think
Mm.
about getting mad at the person who's producing the content and choosing to have that ad pop up.
Right.
And maybe stop viewing those users and go to content producers who don't give you ads. I don't know. Or pay the $10 a month and don't get ads. I just think it's interesting that YouTube, because we know YouTube education channel has fallen well short of what
Right.
educators would like it to be. What if this YouTube Red folds into you can pay $10 a month and get YouTube education the way we think YouTube education should be.
Right, because YouTube for schools is that option that seemed to just disappear. No one really talks about it that much.
Yeah. And the videos that are supposed to be vetted for educational content.
Right. They haven't added a whole lot more in a year.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see they're starting to layer YouTube in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to look at in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a lot to look forward to. I know we can't predict the future, but I'm going to guess there are going to be still a lot more of these sites popping up that are integrating with, definitely with Google Classroom. That one, because they opened up the API, you're going to see a whole lot more that will say share to Classroom or might have even a better integration with it. For those of you that have already adapted and gone into Classroom as your main form of assignment distribution, I think you're only going to be happier and happier as you go along. If you haven't already, all of these new things that keep coming up may entice more people into Google Classroom for sure. But you still have the whole, there's a lot of schools with iPads that they don't feel quite as good with the classroom. The classroom's good on an iPad, but not everything in Google Apps is the full version on an iPad. And it's getting better, but it's still not totally integrated. And I think that's a setback for them.
I had a teacher that he wanted his students to upload videos to Classroom. They did some sort of experiment and they recorded them. Well, since we have iPads, they all used iPads, and that grade actually has Chromebooks, but they went to another grade and got their iPads. And I said, why didn't you guys just record them on your Chromebooks? It would have worked easier, but they didn't. So I had 10 kids come to me. I got my video on the iPad. How do I get it into Classroom? So we had to upload into Drive and then attach it from Drive. Now I think there was a feature, there was an option to upload the video through Classroom, the Classroom app, but it wasn't working for us. So we had to upload to Drive, and then so it was not impossible, but it certainly wasn't easy. And I don't know if these kids would have figured it out had they not had me helping them.
Right. So I'm seeing that it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
What is sad for teachers is, when you do find something and you think it's an awesome tool, when they know they have to have a subscription and you just don't know which ones to buy into. And I think that's hard, unless the school chooses
Yeah.
something as in full, accounts for everybody at the school. It's really hard. So one of those, Newsela is one that you were mentioning before the
Yeah.
show. And I think that's a tough one, as a teacher to decide on, to buy for themselves, right? Or,
So I've seen a lot of people using Newsela this
mhm.
year. I mean, I found out about it about 2 years ago, and I think and so the early adopters, I've heard about it, but it seems to have reached a tipping point this year, and I hear of teachers all the time using it now.
Mhm.
But they're using the free version, which the free version is good. But I know I have a classroom teacher who wants the pro version because she wants the certain results that she can get from her students. And we talked about different ways that she might be able to do a workaround through Google Forms or something, but it's still a workaround that she shouldn't have to do. But the subscription for the individual teachers is too cost prohibitive for us to get it for her classroom.
Mhm.
And you have it at the district level, which we don't have that option available to us. So yeah, it's and I go back like Edpuzzle is free,
Mhm.
and I love Edpuzzle, and they're doing everything they can to keep it for free,
Mhm.
but they've got to make money. I know the people who make Edpuzzle, and at some point they've got to make money, and they're researching all kinds of different models of ways that they can make money without charging the teacher. Um,
Uh,
and
it's
you see,
difficult. Mhm.
right, you see Powtoon did that for a while. They came out and was really popular when it was free, and then they said, we got to make some money. We got to start charging for this. And
Mhm.
um, I
So,
I don't know how you find that balance between them making money but teachers not having to pay.
and you're right. I have, several teachers that are using DocHub, and I have warned them. I said, look at that notice. It says it's still in beta. And I said, as soon as that rolls out of beta, they are going to start charging for some of these services that you're using. And they're like, well, we're going to take advantage of it now.
Yeah,
But that's what happens in education. We get kind of sucked into a tool and we really like it, and then it monetizes and we're like, oh no, because teachers can't afford it. They just can't afford,
right.
to buy accounts all over the map just to
But
do
then what
things.
we need to start thinking about, and I've seen some schools do this, instead of charging a textbook fee, you charge a technology fee.
Right.
And the money can find it out there, but schools are now having to start thinking about finding that money in different places for, different subscriptions for all these different apps and tools. And they're having to come up with different financial models to do that. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of times it falls on the teacher to have to pay it out of their own pocket.
Yep. Well, we know that it is a dog eat dog world. If you ever go to any conference and you go on the vendor's floor, they are really, really competitive trying to get the business. And it's going to continue to be that way, probably more and more. Because the more tech that goes in the schools, the more these companies are
Right.
going to want a piece of that.
And I don't know how many. I mean, it seems like not as much educators. The like Edpuzzle, the people who created Edpuzzle are former teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and they understand the plight of a teacher. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who see, if I can get this in this many schools across the country, I can make this much money, and they're just seeing the dollar signs.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that schools are fertile ground for money because a lot of schools get government money, and it's, you know, I'm just trying to think of a product. I know Apple kind of built their reputation in the education realm before they became a consumer, mega product. But how many products can you think of that made lots of money in schools? You know what I mean?
uh, maybe smart or smart technologies or something like that.
Yeah, for a while, but at least from what I've seen, they're really suffering, and they've actually, I mean, they're charging for their software now.
Yes.
They're charging a license fee for their software. So,
but they do have some of these whiteboard technologies, they work in the business sector too.
right, that's true. True.
Yeah, so they can make money there. I just can't think of anything else. The only other thing, this is on my wish list. This is just the one that I wish would change. I wish Google Plus could be within a domain for students, so that they could have that interactivity, that chance to communicate in that social style, but in a safe environment. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but that would be on my wish list.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with Google Plus. I mean, it's. I always tell people it's not a social media; it's a platform. That Google is not trying to be the next Facebook with Google Plus.
No.
And there are a lot of great tools in Google Plus, but they're starting to pull those great tools out, like Hangouts and Photos, and they're pulling all those out of Google Plus. So, and I mean, the word is that it's a political battle inside of Google. And right now, the people that don't like Google Plus are winning the political battle in it. But there's still enough invested in it that it doesn't disappear entirely. So, I don't know what.
We love it for our communities. And,
Yeah,
I can certainly see for students, if they have clubs after school, or they have special interests that they're trying to follow, it would.
Well, I think Joan seems to have frozen. And we were wrapping up this podcast. Anyways, so for the listeners, thank you for listening. This is I'm glad to be back, and hope you find these tools that we have highlighted here useful. Feel free to reach out to us. I'm at Cockrum on Twitter. Joan is at DigiTeacher. And the website is flippedlearningremixed.com. So thanks again for listening, and we will be on again soon.